Hello, my beautifuls. I am the adorable Eva Webb. This is Titular Characters, and today we're featuring the talented Blake McCarthy. Blake McCarthy is a 30-year-old first-time comic book creator, born and living in Colorado with his wife and 2 kids, 6 and 2, a firefighter with a burning passion for comics, author of Territory, coming to Kickstarter, and he was nice enough to come by today. How are you today, Blake?
I'm good, Eva. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Where does your journey with comics start? How far back does it go?
So it started when I was a little kid. My dad grew up reading comics, and he had a big collection as far back as kind of like the 70s and stuff. And so my brother and I kind of grew up with that. And I remember as a kid, one of kind of the most exciting and fun things was me, my brother, and my dad would all go to the comic book store together. And so that's where it really, the passion kind of started. And sharing that with my dad, sharing that with my brother, something we could all kind of talk about. And then my mom, she didn't grow up reading them, but because me and my brother and my dad all read them, she would talk about it with us. So I just kind of grew up reading them, and it was a big part of my childhood, a big inspiration for me, both creatively and just, kind of shaped a lot of my views on things.
Is there anything particular that comes to mind for you?
I mean, I think so. The comic I really started with was Spider-Man, and which is pretty generic, but I think just kind of that instilling. And then my dad was a firefighter as well, and so I think between looking up to him and growing up with Spider-Man, I think just kind of that idea of like doing the right thing, trying to always figure out what the right thing was kind of doing in the situation, and having that as something to aspire to. That was something I saw a lot in my dad, and then I, kind of reading the comics and just the way he talked about things and the stories he liked, and we kind of shared. I think those two kind of combined to really influence me in that way, and it's still that really kind of heroic aspect of comics that has always kind of drawn me to them. And I think that it started young, and it's just kind of grown over the years.
And then what you did was you basically you built an entire publishing operation. I mean, let's not pull any punches here. You started from the ground up, and you sourced out all of your creative people. You've got a real team working with you. Would you mind speaking on that for a minute? I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's been a really fun and a completely new process for me. This is my first book I've ever had published in any form, and so I've been writing them for the past couple of years, and finally kind of found this story, Territory, that I really wanted to tell, and I really enjoyed the writing part, but then I wasn't really sure where to go next with it. And so just kind of researching, and Kickstarter was a big inspiration for me because I saw a lot of other either first-time creators or newer creators, who are able to publish their books or get their books made, and they would use a team of artists and other people that, of again, a variety of experience, and just able to kind of bring that together to create something and then put it out on a platform where people could not only read it but support it. And so just kind of looking at that, and then just doing research into some artists. And the artist that I'm using for this book, his name is Chris Sassman. He's based out of South Africa. He's pretty new like myself. He's been illustrating for about a year now, but just looking at his posts on Instagram and Reddit and things. And then he had a colorist he'd worked with before named Ichsan out of Indonesia. And so it was cool just kind of seeing the team come together and talking with other people, being able to kind of put my idea out there, get other people's feedback on it, and seeing other people kind of help me bring it to life. It's been really, really fun and exciting to do, and I'm excited for it to finally hit Kickstarter later this spring and for everyone to be able to see it.
What's the story about?
So Territory it's a post-apocalyptic story, a post-nuclear apocalypse that's set in the Pacific Northwest, sometime in the far future. And it follows, the protagonist is Alkia. She's a teenage girl, somewhere around the age of 16, and her tribe worship this kaiju called the Great Horn, which is a giant kind of bear, elk type monster. And at this point in the world, the remaining people survive in tribes. They worship these kaiju as gods. The kaiju are they have a sort of mystical power about them that brought life back to the post-apocalyptic world. And this is a story about that focuses on Alkia, on her belief in the kaiju and the tribe's belief in it, and then how her belief kind of changes throughout the story as her experience with both the other members of her tribe and the monster itself and the world around her all kind of change. And so it's just her journey. It's got some kaiju action, some kaiju battle. It's got a lot of parts about faith, a lot of parts about family. There's an environmental message in there. And so it's just kind of a lot of the things I've been wanting to tell for a while.
That really sounds exciting. What's the journey been like?
It's been interesting, and it's funny because it's all kind of coming to a head. It's been really exciting because, like I said, I've got a great team and a lot of really supportive people who have been very encouraging and very helpful. But at the same time, it is kind of nerve-wracking. I'm just kind of excited to see how it's received and where it goes from here.
What do you hope people take away from this first issue of Territory?
I hope that they get one. I hope they do get kind of a sense of this unique world. But two, like I said, one of the things I really was going for with Alkia, the main character, is just that sense of people who are kind of either raised a certain way or kind of believe something and start those beliefs are kind of challenged, and just how people react and how people change and grow as circumstances change, as their beliefs change, as they change as people. So that's kind of the emotional core of the story, and I hope people really kind of connect with her and are kind of along for the ride with her as her beliefs grow and change kind of throughout the course of the story.
What's the most challenging part about creating and organizing your first comic book project?
I'd say one of the most challenging parts creatively was just being willing to kind of put myself out there. I'm a pretty personal person, I'd say, and so it was fun writing the stories and stuff, but then taking them to the next level and getting other people involved and seeing how they interpret the story. Even with the artists who have all been awesome on this project, but just putting the work out in front of other people and kind of being able to have an idea in my head of what I was thinking and what I was thinking it was going to look like, and talking to someone else and seeing what they're thinking about it and finding that kind of, middle ground, because there's been some parts that have been changed or influenced by Chris, the main artist on the book, because he's been really collaborative and great on this process. But I've just really learned to like that creative part. It was hard at first to kind of let go of something that, I'd just been basically doing by myself for a while and to let someone else have some control over it. But it's been really awesome seeing how, my ideas, other people's take on them, and other people, how they can make them even better and point out things that I hadn't seen. And I think he's really taken the book to the next level, and I'm excited to see everything that he's done with it, because just seeing other people take your ideas and put their own spin on them and improve on them has been challenging and a little overwhelming at first, but it's been exciting, and I'm glad to see it happen.
That is amazing. It's got to be exciting. This is your first time out there. You are so excited about this. Has the crowdfunding gone live on it yet?
No, so the crowdfunding won't go live until, I'm thinking, around April. It'll be this spring. So we're just getting started on the interior art. The book itself will be done completely by March, and then we'll crowdfund it within, hopefully, like I said, around April. So that's the other kind of challenging aspect to this has been, learning the crowdfunding world and also learning the promotion world. I mean, I didn't even really have a social media account before I made this. And so, just learning how to connect and everything. But that's been another awesome thing. The comics community on Twitter, and especially the indie comics community, is so welcoming, so friendly. There's so many good people who are just looking to help each other out. Everyone's looking to boost each other's projects, get other people excited. And so that's all been very welcoming and encouraging. And, I'm still navigating, figuring out how to get the book in front of people, get people interested in it and all that. But just knowing that there's this great community out there that's so encouraging and so helpful has made all that a lot easier. And then people like you who are willing to, talk to new creators and help us get our words out there, like that's so helpful too. And, it's just nice that there's so many people out there who are willing to help each other, help support each other's projects, support just good things getting made, good creativity happening. And so it's definitely been a learning experience, and I'm just still learning a lot and know where, I'm going to be learning for a long, long time, but I've enjoyed it so far, and the community's really helped make it an enjoyable learning experience.
It's all kinds of people. It's not just like new creators, or experienced creators, or people that are somewhere in the middle, it's a little bit of everybody.
I 100% agree. And like you said, it's cool because people of all levels are just the community feel of it, and people being willing to help each other out and get excited about other people's projects. Just seeing, like you said, all levels working together for the common goal of just getting cool stuff made, and it's celebrating that and celebrating everybody's work. It's kind of one of those, we all rise together, the more successful it is. And so that's just been awesome. There's a bunch of people on Twitter that, I'm definitely trying to pick up as many tips as possible from, just because, not only are they great creators and, good at promotion, but they just seem like good people, fun people, people you would want to be around and associate yourself with. So it's been fun becoming a part of that community and watching the community just help each other out all the time. It's very inspiring.
What's your favorite medium for comics? Do you prefer paper or digital?
Definitely kind of traditional paper. I have started reading more digital comics in the last couple of years, but I think it's just because I grew up, like I said, going to the comic book store was something I looked forward to. Getting, picking the physical comics out, holding them, taking them home, flipping through them, going back through them over and over again. I think just that kind of nostalgia factor. I still really like the physical side of comics, and and now especially getting some of the nicer collected editions, as well as some of the individual copies. Like it's just kind of a nice collectible thing to have. But I have started reading some digitally just because there is a lot of convenience, and especially because there's so many comics out there now. It's hard to get your hands on all of them, and so the fact that they are available digitally is nice, but I would prefer physical if given the choice.
Do you find that digital is something you have to plan for differently when you create a comic book?
It's not something I've necessarily thought about a whole lot with this project. I will be releasing this one digitally. It'll be available as a PDF on the Kickstarter campaign, but it'll basically be a digital version of the physical book. The nice thing about digital, and one thing I have kind of thought about, is you can add a lot more to it. Like you can add, sketches or script pages or work in progress, or you can add stuff like that onto a digital one, because it doesn't cost you anymore to do that. And so I do think that that's a cool part of it. But otherwise, I'd say I haven't really done anything specifically for digital for this comic. It's one that should read pretty much the same as either digital or print.
That's awesome. It really does sound like a ton of fun. And I hope people really pick this one up.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I definitely would say this is the passion project I picked to really, put out there and put myself out there. And so I hope people enjoy it, and I'm excited to see what they think and learn from it.
So what are you reading right now?
I've got about 20 different books on my pull list. I try to kind of reading a little bit of everything. I do read a little bit of Marvel and DC. I'm still a big Spider-Man fan. I really like the Miles Morales series by Saladin Ahmed right now, but also a lot of the indie books. Kieran Gillen's great. Really loving Once and Future. I'm really liking We Live. That's another kind of post-apocalyptic story that's really appealed to me. And I also have my brother and I. We're each still into comics, and we trade between our collections. And he just gave me a bunch of East of West that I've been jumping into. So just reading a little bit of everything, but those are kind of some of the top ones right now, I'd say.
Nice. Do you have a favorite in that group?
I'd say the book I'm probably excited for the most. I really like, it doesn't come out, I think it's just quarterly. Headlopper by Andrew McLean is just extremely fun. I really like his art style and his style of storytelling. And then otherwise, I'd probably have to go with Once and Future. Just mythology and kind of classic stories are something that really interests me, and seeing just the way he's kind of taken all the Arthurian stuff and flipped it on its head, and you can tell he's having a lot of fun with it, and I'm really enjoying that book every month.
I love the Marvel and DC stuff myself, but just between you, me, and everybody listening to this, the indie books are where it's at in terms of having fun, in terms of like where the comic book renaissance is really happening right now. There's so much good stuff out there. It's hard to keep up with.
I 100% agree, and it's really, I agree. I think renaissance is a really good word for it, and we're seeing a lot of small publishers that are really kind of blooming right now, and it's awesome. Like Vault, everything they've been putting out is great. Mad Cave, I feel like it's really up and coming. Aftershock's done a lot of good stuff. And then, the bigger ones like Image and Boom and Dark Horse are still putting out good stuff too. So that's definitely where I've kind of shifted my attention as well. Because like you said, I think you get those really passionate creators that are just having fun and writing the books they want to write, and it really comes through in a lot of their stuff. So it's great to see. I feel like we are in an awesome time for indie publishing, which is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, totally. So we're reaching the fun part of the show, and you're familiar with this part, where I get to ask you about your inner superhero. So say, theoretically, you wake up one day, you're imbued with superpowers, and it doesn't even have to be superpowers. It could be like some super attribute that makes you a superhero. What do you do with said abilities? How do you see yourself? What's your costume look like?
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. Design is not my strong suit, but I think it'd be influenced by kind of the superheroes, I grew up with in that kind of age of Marvel, like with the Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and stuff. I think it would be kind of retro, kind of, almost old school sci-fi pulpish, almost like a space kind of feel to it. I don't think I would do a cape or anything, but I guess kind of like a super astronaut type look. I'd say would be kind of what I would want to go for. Something kind of old school, but with a modern twist to it too.
Nice. And do you see yourself as like a traditional hero, or as like more of a dark, gritty, modern anti-hero, or a villain even? How do you see the way you would use these powers?
I think it would be kind of the traditional hero role, especially with superhero comics. That's always been kind of my favorite. And like I said, that was kind of when I started reading comics, and it was something that really inspired me, was that kind of archetypal superhero, the Spider-Man that do the right thing no matter what the personal cost to yourself is. And I don't want to say I abide by that, but it is something like I aspire to. I think that view on life is something good, and is something that this world could really, really use a lot of. So I would like to say I would try to be that traditional hero, but who actually knows? But that would be the goal. I don't think I would go for the dark and gritty as much.
No, the dark and gritty just, I don't know. I think there's a place for it, but, I just don't think it's as much fun in general.
Exactly. I totally agree with you.
All right. So your question was, and I think I think the response to this one was just sort of a testimony to how brilliant your question was to begin with. And the question was, what genre of comics do you feel is most underserved or forgotten in comics? So we got a ton of just amazing answers. But before we get into that, what makes you think about this? What was your motivation for the question?
My motivation for it was just kind of looking at, I mean, we talked about how there's kind of been a boom in independent publishing recently. And I think that kind of opens up comics to more genres and more different kinds of stories to tell. And so I was just kind of thinking about, either comics I'd read in the past or even just stuff I'd seen in other media, especially film and books and stuff like that, that I hadn't seen in comics as much, and thinking about maybe where some of those gaps are, where there could be some awesome stories that, we could be telling, or that people could put out there that just we're not seeing as much in comics for whatever reason, and trying to figure out kind of why that is, and maybe helping to fill those gaps.
That's amazing. That is a really just inspired question and answer on your side in general. So Spinacled says he wants to see more nonfiction. Comic biographies are so interesting, and they can do so much to get you to understand a person's mannerisms. But beyond that history, the science work so well to use the diagrams of or to use diagrams and have a dialogue around the concepts. Great answer. The next one was by Kashuk Karforma. I love Kashuk, by the way. He wants to see more romance. He says romance, family comedy, Blondie, Dennis the Menace, anthropomorphic comedy. I know Boom's Kids imprint used to bring a lot of Garfield comics written by Mark Avner himself, but no idea what the current status is. Drew, the Savage Ape Man, says funny animals. Robert McGuire says romance. Mark Quarantino says, oh, that's funny, Quarantino. Okay, sorry.
It's a good name.
It really is. It really is. Martin Quarantino says historical fiction in U.S. comics anyway. European comics readers are quite well served in this respect. Ken Reining says, at this point, Westerns. I can think of examples for just about every other genre, but the only great Western comic that comes to mind from the last few years is Jonah Hex. Well, I suppose East West has Western motifs, but it doesn't quite fit the bill. What do you think about Westerns?
So that was actually, when I was thinking about this question, that was the genre that came to mind for me. And I think it's just because, especially in film, but in comics too, Westerns have such a rich history, especially in U.S. comics and just U.S. Media. And there were so many great Western stories, and Westerns were used to tell a lot of different stories. I mean, there's kind of, there's a lot of similar themes and motifs, but I feel like the Western genre has kind of covered a lot of ground. And there used to be a lot of Western comics, especially in kind of the early days, and now they've just kind of faded away. And it's actually funny he mentioned East of West, because that's one that I've been just gotten into recently, and I think kind of prompted this as well, is that I think the Western genre has so much potential for so many different kinds of cool stories, and for whatever reason, it's just kind of faded away, not just from comics, but all media. And it's one that I personally would like to see coming back, and I think there's a lot of cool stories to be told there. So I think that is a really good answer.
I think in general, we're sort of living in an age of genre deconstructions right now. You're seeing everybody just sort of take apart different genres and different tropes and really just sort of critically examine them in ways that have never been attempted, at least publicly, on a big stage before. And I think that's really what defines the modern era of comics. Do you
Totally.
think that's because of there are so few westerns in movies right now, and comics are sort of part of the conversation and they're driving the conversation, but they're also at the same time sort of influenced by other forms of media and what's going on?
Definitely. And I think, and yeah, like you said, movies, comics, books. I think just westerns as a genre are just not extremely popular right now for whatever reason. They were kind of the genre a while ago, but they've just kind of faded, it seems like, from all media. And that's cool you mentioned Indiegogo, because I've also seen on Kickstarter there have been some westerns popping up, but again, they usually have some kind of twist to them, either a supernatural feel, or like a sci-fi, or even kind of a horror element, but just kind of taking the western genre and flipping it on its head a little bit. And I definitely think that because we don't see many western movies coming out anymore, like they're just not, that kind of story isn't on the front of people's minds, and that's probably a big reason we're seeing less of it. But I do feel like it makes it cool when we do see one come out. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Bone Tomahawk, but that was a really good kind of in a lesser known western movie. It came out a little bit ago, again with a horror twist. And I feel like we're getting less of them, but the ones we are getting now are really passionate, and people who are looking to, like you said, not just take kind of the typical western, but look at it, take the pieces and put them back together in a new way, or add something new to it. And I think hopefully we'll see more and more of that, just because I think it is a fun genre that can be played with a lot. And so I'm curious to see what people do with it.
What does the future hold for the fabulous Blake McCarthy?
Well, I don't know. At this point, it's hard to tell, just because this is my first project, and I'm at this point, I just want to see this one get done, and complete something and put it out there, and say that I was able to make something with the help of all these other people. But I have really enjoyed this. This is something I would definitely like to do. I'm in a fortunate position where this is something I do as a passion project. It's not my job. I'm not financially dependent on it. And I kind of like it that way, because I can just keep doing the things I'm passionate about without having to worry about the financial aspect as much. But I would like to be able to keep telling stories and learning and growing. I mean, this is my first time working with an artist, first time working with a team, first time putting a book out there. So just trying to learn as much from the whole process, so that the next story I come up with, not only can I learn creatively from it, but put out a better product, put out something that, is exciting. People want to have it, they want to read it, they're excited to see what comes next. So at this point, just keep learning and being able to put out the projects I'm passionate about.
Well, Blake, I am really just thrilled for you and this whole project, and I wanted to thank you for coming on my humble little podcast and sharing it with me.
Well, like I said, thank you. I mean, just the opportunity to get the word out and talk about it is something that, especially as a new creator, is extremely valuable. And especially, someone like you that is so positive and supportive of these projects, and, getting to know not just the project, but the story behind it, and kind of my story, the creator story. It's really nice to be able to kind of put all that out there, and, hopefully it gets people excited for the project. And I appreciate you taking the time, and these questions have all been great. So thank you for having me on.
Hello, my babies. It's time to close the show. I just wanted to say thank you for being the most awesome people in the universe. Thank you for contributing and making this show possible. Thank you for listening and giving us your feedback. And thank you for being beautiful, valid, and living your best life. We had another contribution this week from Cheshire 2050. He said, "Stay adorable." This is Brad, and we all know that Brad is awesome, like one of the nicest people ever. Thanks, Brad. If you would like to contribute to the show, just visit buymeacoffee.com/EvaIsAdorable, because I am. All donations go towards the cost of production, and they are always appreciated. Titular Characters is a show about the things we love and the people that make the magic happen. It's produced and hosted by the adorable Eva Webb. It's me. Sound design by Eva Webb. Also me. And we're still looking for a new sound person, so DM me on Twitter for details if you're interested. Opening theme by Antonia Marquis. Closing theme by Mikey Flash of Speed Force Music. And that's it, my babies. Join us next time for another death-defying adventure in cyberspace. Oh, and when you do, bring candy. Love yas.